Hi, I'm Professor Chuck. Welcome to another week of Secret Shakespeare. This week we're watching another teen romantic comedy. This one's from 2006. It's called She's the Man, starring Amanda Bynes in the lead role of Viola. This movie is inspired by, pretty much based on, Twelfth Night by Shakespeare. Um, and with this one, first I should say it's the main plot, which seems to be about soccer. Um, Viola, our main character, wants to. She's a soccer star on the girls' soccer team. The funding is pulled for the girls' soccer team, so she wants to try out for the boys' team, but she's not allowed to do that because she's a girl. And so that starts us into the main story, which is about how she is going to go to a different high school, Illyria Prep, and impersonate her brother Sebastian. So she cross dresses, makes people believe that she's Sebastian, who no one there has met, and then goes out for the boys' soccer team there. So that's kind of the main plot that pulls us through. However, the romantic comedy part is a sort of a double love triangle between Viola and her roommate and friend Duke Orsino. In the play, it's the Duke of Orsino. They cleverly flatten that in the movie into Duke Orsino. Um, Duke has a crush on a popular girl, but that he's afraid to talk to, named Olivia. And so Viola, as Sebastian, um, uh, says that she will talk Duke up to Olivia, try and get him a date with Olivia, if Duke will help her or him, Sebastian, get onto the varsity soccer team. Um, Unfortunately, as you might anticipate if you're familiar with the way that Shakespeare works these things out, when uh, when Viola goes courting Olivia on behalf of Duke, Olivia actually falls for Viola as Sebastian. Um, Meanwhile, of course, Viola herself has begun to fall in love with Duke, but Duke thinks that she is Sebastian, his roommate and fellow soccer player. Um, when Sebastian's brother comes back to town, he'd been secretly out of town. In the play, Viola believes that her brother Sebastian has drowned, and she impersonates a young man, a young gentleman um, named Cesario. She doesn't impersonate her brother, but she impersonates a young man in order to make her way as a young woman in the world. It's safer and gives her more opportunities as a young man. So that motivation there is roughly the same for Viola from the play to the movie. Um, that said, it gives opportunity for lots of physical comedy in the movie, with Viola having to switch back and forth between her Viola girl outfits and her Sebastian boy outfits back and forth. Those aren't actually in the play. However, I think those are things that Shakespeare would have appreciated. As you may know, all of the actors in Shakespeare's time were men. So even the roles of the leading ladies, the women in the Shakespeare plays, were actually played by men or by young boys. Um, this idea of cross-dressing and mistaken identity, not surprisingly, is a familiar theme in Shakespeare. It's something that he plays with in a lot of his plays, and in especially the comedies. So definitely this movie is sort of participating in the spirit of Shakespeare's comedies, all the way throughout. Um, there are a couple things that in the discussion questions I'm gonna ask you to pay attention to and think about, though. Um, and those mostly concern changes that have been made between the play and the movie. I know you haven't read the play or watched the play, but I try and set you up for success there. So one of the things, for example, that I want us to look at is Shakespeare's known for his soliloquies, his speeches, which are often asides, where a character expresses their thoughts and feelings directly to the audience. They sort of turn to the audience and say, "Oh, I'm feeling this way," and that in the play of Twelfth Night is how we find out that Viola is falling for Duke, and also that she's starting to realize that Olivia is falling for her. And she sort of sorts her way through these complications in the play through that speech. The movie doesn't do that. Soliloquies, of course, are out of fashion these days, but the movie does manage to relay that information to us. So I want you to watch for how does the movie let us know what Viola is thinking and knowing and understanding. Another convention that Shakespeare liked to use a lot is called dramatic irony. In fact, comedy writers use dramatic irony a lot to this day. It's a really nice device to use for comedic effect. Dramatic irony is when the characters in a scene, one or more of the characters in a scene, don't know things that the audience knows. So, in other words, we're watching a character behave in a way that they probably wouldn't do if they knew what we knew. So I want you to watch for aspects of that too. The movie does this a lot, and not surprisingly, Shakespeare's play does this a lot. But watch for that. I want you to notice those scenes and think about the effect that using dramatic irony has on the our relationship to the characters. How does dramatic irony change how we understand the characters or relate to the characters? And then finally, with the last two discussion questions, I'd like you to pay attention to how this movie portrays gender roles. So we looked at that to a certain extent in 10 Things I Hate About You, which was based on the Taming of the Shrew. Now, the Taming of the Shrew is often thought of, I think I mentioned this to you before, the Taming of the Shrew is thought of as one of Shakespeare's problem plays, in the sense that it is not a positive portrayal of women. It's right there in the title, Shrew. Also, because the main character in the Taming of the Shrew, Cat or Kate, is sort of broken by her, or tamed by her romantic interest, and then gives a speech at the end of that play about how women should be obedient and subservient to their husbands. That's sort of a problem for us these days. And that movie dealt with that in some interesting ways. Now, the Twelfth Night is not thought of as a problem play. It's not one where we typically look at that play and think that it is misogynistic or has poor portrayals of women. Yes, Viola cross-dresses and becomes a man because she recognizes the social standing that she will have as a man is much greater than what she will have as a woman. That doesn't present us with a problem in terms of the attitudes that the play presents. It's the play addressing those very real social issues that we recognize. Now, the movie, even though, not to spoil the end of the movie, but that soccer story, Viola gives Viola a victory, right? She proves that she's as good at soccer as anybody. So, not surprisingly, you'll anticipate that that's going to happen anyway. Okay, but other than that victory that it gives Viola, pay attention to how this movie portrays its other female characters. And also pay attention to the attitudes that the boys and men in this movie, She's the Man, pay attention to their attitudes toward women and towards gender roles. Okay, I think that there are some problems that aren't in Shakespeare's play that are introduced by this movie, which is interesting, considering that we like to think of ourselves as being so much more progressive than people who lived 400 years ago. But in fact, I think this 2006 movie has some problems, introduces some problems that Shakespeare doesn't have. Another of those problems is at the end of this movie, when Duke figures out that his roommate Sebastian and teammate Sebastian is actually Sebastian's sister Viola, who he has seen as Viola and has obviously been interested in and very attracted to. But when he discovers that Sebastian, who he thought was Sebastian, is actually Viola, Duke struggles with that. He struggles with his own thoughts and feelings around that. Um, in the play, that doesn't happen at all. There are none of these sort of homophobic undercurrents that we feel throughout the movie She's the Man, and that crisis point for Duke at the end. None of that is in the play. So the movie has introduced those elements. Why has the movie introduced problems like these where they did not exist in the play? I think that helps us to look at the historical moment in which this movie is made and what our attitudes are like now versus 15 years ago versus 400 years ago. So I'd like you to pay attention to those, all of those aspects. Now, all of that said, I think this is a fun, light comedy. I encourage you to enjoy it. The physical comedy with the changing back and forth between outfits, all those sorts of things, are a lot of fun. It's a light, humorous, teen romantic comedy. Enjoy it for that, but pay attention to these other aspects. This is, after all, Secret Shakespeare. Um, Look for my introduction to the movie and for my discussion questions on my website, professorchuck.com. And I look forward to hearing your thoughts about this film when we come together uh, next time. So until then, stay home, stay safe, stay well.